Hi guys, my name's Daniel, and today I wanted to talk about just writing to your future self and then also realizing that things weren't as big a deal as you thought they were in the past, I guess. So, where I'm kind of coming from on this is since I was in like 8th grade, I've been writing myself like yearly letters, and I do it once a year, like in March. And all I do is just kind of go through my whole year, all the random stuff. Like, I guess, especially in middle school and stuff, I would just write like my crushes and my friends and little gossip and stuff like that. Now they're a little bit more in depth, like how I'm feeling and what I'm doing and all that. And obviously I journal a little bit more, but I kind of wanted to just say that it's really important to kind of leave yourself a message or like an idea of what your current state was in the past or in the current this exact moment, kind of. Just because I feel like a lot of times we end up either romanticizing our realities, our past, or kind of catastrophizing it. Like, I'm super nostalgic about my childhood and everything, and it's always like the joke about like, oh, I happen to think that the early 2000s is the most objectively best time to ever grow up, and the fact that I just happen to be a kid who was carefree and no worries just doesn't have anything to do with it, you know? And I feel like that happens a lot with lots of different things. It could be like relationships, it could be with specific moments in your life. Like, even COVID, I feel like I kind of romanticize a little bit because, like, I was locked up. Like, I did not see anybody for like a year and a half or two. But it was like a time where I got to play a lot of video games with my friends. I was really online. And if I think about it, I was really isolated. Like, I hadn't really seen my friends in a long time. I talked to them on Discord all the time. We played games and everything, but I think there's kind of a difference. And like, there's a whole reason why in 2020 I decided to go monk mode and like delete all my social media and shaved my head and then was like hiking every single weekend. But like right now, currently, when I look at it, I'm like, it was so nice not to have a job. The very little school that I was doing was all online and I was just playing games at the same time. And so I've kind of almost romanticized that period. If I didn't have stuff written down from that time, I just would see it as like this perfect, great time during 2020, you know? But because I do write myself letters to the future, I can kind of go back and read them every year and see like, oh, this is what I was kind of feeling. This is what was going on. I've started journaling a little bit more now. I kind of, especially the last 2 years is when I really started doing it. Sometimes I try to do it like weekly. Sometimes it's daily. It kind of just depends. I try not to like really force myself into a specific schedule. It's just kind of like, if I feel like I have a lot to unload, I just kind of write into my journal. And it's kind of cute to just kind of read back through like just random stuff sometimes, stuff that you just kind of forget. Like, for example, I'll be talking about my day and how I hung out with this friend and then we went and hiked a mountain or something. And it's like really silly stuff like that. Or sometimes it's like a little bit silly in a different kind of sense where, for example, I'll just kind of complain about one of my friends being a specific way and saying a specific thing to me that kind of bothered me or whatever. And I think doing stuff like this kind of helps you a lot to just ground you, really make you realize like where you're at. This whole video is kind of inspired because I had I had forgotten completely that I had Pinterest when I was in like 8th grade. And yesterday, as I was like looking through it, because I use it a lot more now, I had these boards that I made back then, and it was like really cringy. It was just really funny to see that and just kind of compare it to like where I'm at now. Because like in my mind back then, like I was kind of an NPC, but like looking at those posts, I was like, you know, these aren't really that different from what I would be posting now on Twitter or saying right now. So it's kind of interesting to see that, just kind of compare my past version of myself to my current version. And then another thing too is like, I think it adds on to what I've already kind of been saying in the last couple of videos about just respecting yourself and also just being kind to yourself. So for a while, I was kind of mean to my younger self, especially. I think it's easy to, you know, like hindsight is such a powerful thing. I can always, because I know the answers that I need to give in hindsight, you know? At the current moment, like, I couldn't have known that X or Y was about to happen. But for whatever reason, like, whether I just knew something back then and now I know even more, or it just felt like the right thing then and I've kind of changed and grown as a person and realized that I should have probably done something else. Like, it's easy to kind of try to judge your past versions and say that, like, oh, me personally, I would have done this thing or this thing. But, like, no, you wouldn't have, because at that time, that's what you chose, you know? You can't judge yourself with your current knowledge, is what I'm trying to get at, basically. So, there's lots of, like, little random stuff that I decided to do when I was little, like, I don't know, just slacking off in school or not working as hard in sports, or maybe like being mean to people or kind of pushing some people away. Like, at the time it felt like the right thing and I don't regret any of it. I've been saying, I don't like having regrets. All of it kind of led to me being the current me. And so if I didn't have any of those lessons per se, I wouldn't be able to look back and say, like, damn, I wish I would have done something else. So if I had done something else, maybe I wouldn't have learned my lesson, and right now I'd be sitting here like repeating that same cycle, you know? So you gotta go through the cycle a few times, make mistakes, kind of maybe get beat up a little bit, like both emotionally, physically, mentally, every sense. And then, like, once that happens, that's where you kind of start taking a step back and you're like, okay, maybe there is something to learn here. Maybe I didn't know better then, but now I do. And so now I won't repeat that stuff. So, like, when I was little, like, I tend to kind of forget. I think we kind of all imagine ourselves as, like, even though we know that like, if I'm thinking of my 8-year-old self, it's like, I know what an 8-year-old looks like. But when I think of my 8-year-old self, since I was like, it was me, and I felt so conscious and like mature, I guess. I've always kind of been a deep thinker, I guess. But like, I'll watch a video of myself at that time and it's like, oh yeah, that is a baby, you know? I can't judge my 8-year-old self with my 23-year-old self's current knowledge. I was talking to somebody earlier and that they were saying how, like, they were a weird kid in elementary school and how people probably don't remember her from back then. And personally, like, I never met her. It's like a weird situation where some of my friends knew her, but I asked some of my friends and they remember her, and she felt really weird about that because in her mind she like didn't like being perceived, and she just imagined herself as being like a weird kid. And I've kind of felt that as well. Like, I always am amazed when especially now, like the last couple of years, I've almost been like a little bit like a training arc, I guess. I've had a time skip. Okay, I hid away from the people. I was just kind of doing my own thing, just training in every sense, I guess, physically, mentally, emotionally. And now I'll run into people and they remember me really fondly, even though I've never really talked to them. Like, I was at the bars with my brother for Bad Bunny night, and I ran into somebody who had been a really good wrestler, and I think he graduated like before I was even in high school, but I remember seeing him like in the club and everything. But he was like really shocked to see me because he hadn't seen me since I was like 8th grade or something like that. And he was telling his buddy about how, like, I was one of the only kids that was like actually tough and could keep up with him and everything, and that I was a really good wrestler and all this stuff. And in my head, it's like I had been just kind of showing up and working hard, obviously, but like, I am so narrow-minded and kind of tunnel vision sometimes that I don't really notice the people around me. So I'm just kind of doing my things, and I don't really notice how my actions kind of affect other people or kind of inspire other people. But like, to this guy who I had kind of looked up to as a little kid, he had kind of noticed like that hard work and everything, and that's not really something I'd really believed in myself, I guess. I ran into somebody else as well, also like somebody I knew from wrestling, but like this person, I had straight up like probably talked to him like 2 words ever, and we ran into each other at this event, and he like instantly recognized me, and for a second it like took me a second to realize who he was. And it was kind of nice like talking to him. Like, it's not somebody I'd really hang out with or was ever friends with. Like, it was more of like an acquaintance, but he really remembered me. And in my head I was always like, just kept to myself. People didn't really know me. But that's not really the case, I guess. So in a lot of ways, I think we wind up too focused on what we're doing. And that's why I think like having a record of what you're thinking, who you were talking to, who your friends were, and all that is really good. Let your feelings kind of get out, because sometimes like a lot of especially my older ones, like my older yearly letters to myself are all about like girls and stuff like that. And it's like I thought basically the world was ending because so and so rejected me, or so and I stopped hanging out or whatever. And like at the time it was really important to me, but like looking back now it's just kind of funny because like I haven't really talked to those people in literally years, but like at that moment they were so important. So I just think it's important to kind of be able to look back, almost reacquaint yourself with that past version of yourself, and just see how much you've grown as well. A lot of people sometimes kind of talk about they haven't really changed much, they're the same person. And like I do think that we do always just kind of become more of ourselves and start expressing ourselves more fully and everything like that. But it's easy to say that like you haven't gone far when you're only ever looking forward basically and seeing how many steps and miles you still have left to go. But when you look back, like you kind of realize like, oh shit, I actually have gone quite a ways from where I thought I was. And I just think writing stuff down, reaching out to people you haven't reached out to in a while as well. Like I've always been kind of not ashamed, I wouldn't say. I'd say it's more of like I don't want to be annoying to people, because there's lots of people I used to be really close friends with, and we literally knew like everything about each other, and we talked to each other like every single day. And just for one reason or another, like life kind of just separated us. And sometimes like I always feel like I always want to reach out to everybody. I'm always reminiscing and sitting in my nostalgia and sitting in my past, and almost caught in the past a little too much, honestly. But for whatever reason, for a while, I would kind of like block myself out and just be like, I can't message this person because it's going to be really annoying and they're going to think it's kind of weird that I'm messaging them after all these years. But like, that's never the case. Like I personally, like anytime I run into people from high school or even before that, like when I'm out and about, it's so nice. Like even if I've never really like met them and I kind of just knew them through mutual friends, I'm always like, oh my God, it's so-and-so. And then I'll go talk and be like, yo, how have you been? And then like call it a day, and then I never think about them again. But still, like it's really nice. And especially with like people that I was really close with, like there's a few friends who I've really taken like actual steps towards trying to maintain friendships with. Like for a while, I kind of have some friends who just don't live in Alaska anymore, and so I have to text them a little bit. You kind of wind up getting busy and you don't talk as much. And for like a while, it was the same kind of mentality, right? Like I kind of would just not message them because they weren't messaging me, and I was like, I don't really want to be annoying. Like if they wanted to, they would, but that's not really the right mentality to have either, because sometimes like they want to, it's just like life gets in the way. I don't really like this mentality that like I'm not going to call somebody because they haven't called me, or I'm not going to do this for this person unless they do this. Like life isn't that transactional, and I think a lot of people get caught up in that sometimes, just because of pride and ego. But it's okay to feel a little hurt, but I think you're just assuming the worst for no reason. And I think the only way to find out is to just reach out to somebody, say like, yo, how have you been? It's been forever. I just want to catch up. And if it's kind of just like innocent like that, like, and people are just going to really appreciate that. And a lot of times you'll almost like get to learn more about yourself through that. Because there's lots of people who I wasn't really close friends with in high school or college or anything like that. And then like we've reconnected like now basically. And they kind of give you a different perspective of how people perceive you. depending on how far back they go. Like, I left school for a long time because I was just wrestling all the time, and so I went online even before COVID and was traveling a lot and stuff. And in my head, it's like I was in school freshman year, I went halfway through sophomore year, and then after that I just like disappeared and never came back. But I kind of reconnected with somebody I went to middle school and high school with the last year, and she kind of told me how like everybody thought I was just like a badass and all this stuff, and like it really helped me feel a little seen, honestly, because in my head it's like I straight up had just disappeared from existence. Like, through high school I basically went to my freshman year the whole year, and then sophomore year I was half the year I was online, junior year I was fully online, and then senior year COVID happened, so then I did half the year in person and half the year online. So I basically only went to 1 year of high school in person, and the rest I was just like doing my thing and traveling and stuff, which I don't regret at all either, and I really like appreciate the opportunities I got because of that. But for a while, like, it's kind of weird seeing life just continue without you, but like my life also continued without everybody else. Like, some of my closest friends obviously made other friends and then were doing their own thing, and I was kind of doing the same thing, just somewhere else. But it's kind of easy to kind of beat yourself up and just say like, oh, all these people have moved on and I'm kind of stuck, and then you just kind of stay in place in the past while everybody just kind of keeps moving forward without you. But that's not really the case. Like, I think, like I said, we get tunnel visioned, we focus on the wrong stuff, and I think being more honest with ourselves, being honest with our feelings, writing that stuff down, it leaves a good record for future us to kind of look back on and be like, I did feel that at that time, but with my current knowledge and the current growth that I've had, like, this is really not that big a deal, you know? So that's all I really have for now. I really encourage you guys to write in journals, write your existence down. Don't let it all become just like memories that fade away, because I've heard that like your memories aren't really even like accurate. It's just like the last time you recalled it. So I think a lot of times we're just not remembering things correctly. And then the website I use to write myself a letter into the future, it's called futureme.org. I'll try to link it in the bio. But yeah, I'd really encourage you guys to just kind of write to yourself and leave like a record of like your current version, for you to read in the future, because you'll see how far you've kind of grown and matured, and you get to see like other perspectives from other people if you reach out to people from your past. So thank you guys for watching, and maybe next time we'll get a mountain video.